Welcome back to the All Figured Out podcast. My name is Andrea Barr. I am your host, have been since the start, so you're stuck with me. And I want to say thank you for joining me again this week. Thank you for those of you who are watching on YouTube. If you haven't checked us out on YouTube, go give it a whirl. All Figured Out with Andrea Barr. Very easy to find. You can just Google it. And if you're ever doing your dishes or want to throw me up on your TV while you're cleaning up the toys, try it out. Check it out. There's a few podcasts I like listening to that way, and often I go back and forth. So just another way you can get me in your eyes now and ears. But our episode this week came at such a good time. Oh my gosh, my family all got really sick. Like, they just had nothing like that dramatic, but just like back to back to back. Everyone was sick. There was gastro. There was like a flu. I don't know what was going on. And I was just walking around, posting on my stories, being like, I am not getting sick. Look at me. Look at my immune system. And I really did survive. I didn't get any of their gross germs. There was like one day I didn't feel great. And then something struck. And it's this thing that I describe in this episode today with Julia Bitter. And I share a little bit about this thing that I get. It's this like abscess in my throat. It is so bizarre. An abscess is just like an infection, something that starts to swell up. And it doesn't sound, it's like, okay, yeah, sore throat, but it's so incredibly painful. And I was saying the first time it happened was at one of my best friend's weddings. And I was doing a reading and I like barely got through the reading and I didn't want to tell her. I actually didn't tell her until like weeks later, maybe one of our other friends, because I didn't want to like rain on her parade. Anyways, I had this abscess and like my throat starts to swell and it's quite a big deal because it's the airway, but I know now how to manage it. Like, I need a steroid, I need an antibiotic, and it's this whole thing. Anyways, I get into it on the episode today, but it was such amazing timing that it actually kind of sucked, but it's good timing that I was coming off the heels of something complicated and recurrent and painful. Because in the discussion today with Julia Bitter, we talk about the work that she does now after having a few variations and deviations in her career. We talk about pain and what it can really do to you and how you can self-manage in situations where you feel like you are trying to figure out how to advocate for yourself, or like the head isn't talking to the hand, aka our medical system in some situations where I was saying like I get really pissed off when this happens, like why me? You know, I kind of go down that like woe is me rabbit hole, and then couple that with sometimes not feeling like I'm heard, or like really having to try to use my voice to say, I know what this is. I know my body. This is the 6th time this has happened. I'm always in the ER for it, even though I'm not stressed anymore, because I'm like, I know what this is. I know how to fix it. However, the course of treatment is not given to me. They say it's viral. Anyways, sorry, I'm like going on a big tangent here about this like situation, but all that to say, it was just such perfect timing because I was just found myself getting so fired up on behalf of people, parents specifically, who are living with chronic illness, who are living with autoimmune conditions, who are living with pain day in and day out, or they have flare-ups that happen and you can't plan this stuff. So, you know, I had a big week. Like, I did 2 in-person podcast recordings yesterday. I just recorded with Julia today, just now. And I had a really big, exciting week that I was really looking forward to. And I'm a mom of 2. And, you know, that role in particular, we can move appointments, we can move recordings and things like that. But that role of mother, as parent, as one of the heads of the household, like that's one that is a really hard factor in these situations. And I just loved the conversation with Julia that I just had. She has an incredible story in terms of getting into a field that is supposed to be really stable. And she was displaced 3 times. So she's a nurse. She studied psychology, like did all the things that are like, you will have a job for life. And in 3 different situations, she was displaced, all the while raising 2 children. The first displacement happened when she had a toddler. And it's just, the story is so crazy. And she has such a beautiful outlook on how every single time she asked herself, like, what could I learn from this? And she is now, as she describes it, not to spoil it, but she says, I am in my dream job now. And she's an entrepreneur. So she's like still working in the system, supporting people in a way that she loves. And she is now a registered nurse still. She's a clinical coordinator, and she is a certified holistic nurse coach and the founder of Safe Space Healing. She helps people stop fighting their bodies and learn how to work with them. We get into it in a lot of detail in this episode to really understand like what that means, how people like this can help the everyday person. And we actually have a really big discussion about pain. And I think it's really fascinating. And I think it's really fascinating from that perspective of a lot of people. I said it, like, everyone's got their shit. You know, some people it's like a knee thing. Some people it's an autoimmune thing. So pain can come from like the stomach. Like if you have gut issues, like that's a form of pain. And we talk about pain in general and self-management. So like it's great to have all the specialists, but like what can you do about it as well? How can you live a well life? I love this. I love this conversation. It's so grounded. And I just so appreciate everything that Julia shared, and that there's people like her in the world that can help us parents live well. And she even talks about like not just living without pain, but like how could you actually feel even better than you ever thought possible. It is inspiring. It's uplifting. You're going to learn so much. Without further ado, I bring you Julia Bitter. This is All Figured Out. I'm Andrea Barr. I'm a career coach for parents, a mom of two, and I absolutely believe that you can continue to grow personally and professionally while protecting family time. We're about to figure out this work, life, and parenting stuff out together. Julia Bitter, thank you so much for joining me on the All Figured Out podcast. Finally! We're doing it. You just, before we hit record, you're like, I am so sorry. Can I just step away for a second? You live at the end of what I assume is a very long driveway on 5 acres, and there was a man at your window.
Yeah. I don't know what that was all about.
Yeah. So that must be interesting when you have people on your property. Like for me, I'm like, yeah, I live in a townhouse. Like people are everywhere constantly. But I wanted to start there and just share that with the audience because, man, what a story it is for you to get to where you are today on this 5 acres of land, equestrian things happening, animals, you've got a new puppy upstairs, all the things. But it wasn't always like that.
No.
So we are going to dive into your story of having what would most people consider to be an extremely stable job, a job that is always needed, nursing, psychology, what you studied, and being displaced 6 times in your role. Was it 6?
Well, it was
right, 3 times in 6 years.
Yes.
3 times in 6 years, that's what it was.
Felt like 6.
But 3 is a lot in your field. Take us back to you complete your nursing, your psychology degrees, clearly very book smart, and you're in this field and you start getting displaced, which I'm sure there's listeners here who have been displaced from their jobs before. Take us back to that time. What was going on for you? How did you manage all of that?
Yeah, that was a really interesting time because I didn't even really know about this possibility. Once you're a nurse in a union, like you said, just kind of assumed to be a pretty stable trajectory. But there was some restructuring, and folks with more seniority were able to then go in and kind of bump out junior nurses. And at that time, I was working in home health as a case manager. And I thought that I had absolutely found my dream job. That took me a while to get into that area of nursing. It's not that well known. And it felt like it was the perfect click for me. And I remember getting the call from my manager to come in to his office and just no idea what was about to happen. And when he explained to me that I was losing my job and I'd be going through this displacement process that I'd never even heard of, I remember just bursting out in tears and telling him, like, this is my dream job. Like, this is what I was meant to do as a nurse. And that was in like 2016. So it's been about 10 years and I'm in a completely new world in nursing.
I
And
have to ask you,
yeah,
Julia,
listen, yeah, to me.
given knowing what you know now, and we're going to keep the story going, but knowing that what you know now, do you believe that there's not necessarily one soulmate for every career, for every person in their career? Like, do you believe that you can fall in love in
Totally.
different, like with different jobs?
Yes, yes, exactly. And like I could have just stayed in that area and probably flourished and done amazing. But that wasn't the path that was for me. And it took a lot of like twists and turns and unexpected things. But I'm really grateful for the journey that it took me on. I never expected.
So, what did you do next? How did you take that experience? It sounds like it was maybe quite niche, so it's not like there's jobs of that nature popping up all over the place. How did you make that next? Because I know there's a couple leaps that you took from there. How did you make that first big leap out of that displacement? Being so shocked.
Yeah, I was so shocked. I had a young toddler as well, just a few years old, and he had just been moved into the daycare in the building that my office
Oh
is in. Like I
no!
felt like, oh, I got all my ducks in a row. Everything's perfect. I was walking distance to the office. Like, oh my gosh, it was so perfect as I thought at that time. And so trying to figure out what will work for me as a parent with a young child and childcare and all of those things. I was given a long list of people who were more junior than me that I could then displace. I felt really uncomfortable with the whole process.
I'm sorry, Julia. You were given a list of the names, and it was like pick
100.
who you want to bump.
Uh-huh.
You
Yes.
could you would be picking who you bumped.
Yeah.
That is bizarre.
Yeah, it is kind of the process and it works for some people, but I actually this has happened to me now 3 times as we talked about. I've never done it back. I've always been really lucky enough to find an opportunity to create something new for myself instead of going through and doing all of that. And so what I did is I took a risk and I applied for a casual leadership position in home health. So being an educator in home health, and it wasn't guaranteed. If I had displaced someone, I would have stayed as a regular employee. This was a short-term contract. And I thought this is an amazing opportunity, really took a while to hum it over. And I thought I'll just take the risk and went into leadership and teaching new employees, new staff in Fraser Health into home health, how to do different skills. And that started to build my awareness on things like motivational interviewing and more like self-care practices. But just, yes, fuel the passion. And I think my manager saw that in me and created a full-time position out of it.
Wow. But that was not the final displacement.
No, no, no. So I did that for a year as a clinical nurse educator, as they would say. And this was at a regional position. So anybody who was new into Fraser Health Home Health would come through these classes and we would kind of teach an 8 weeks orientation program. And then I went on my second maternity leave. And while I was away, they disbanded the regional team. And so they made each kind of home health office have its own educators. And those were going to be part-time. So I had been working part-time and, after coming off of a second maternity leave, I really didn't want to go back full-time. I also was still not wanting to do that whole displacement process where I look at the list and that kind of thing.
I had no idea that was a thing. That is
I
so.
didn't,
I
yeah,
know logically on paper maybe it makes sense, but that is wow. How I know you're probably not looking at the person's name and you're like, yeah, Sally, I should bump her. You're looking at like the job title and whatever. But still, oh my gosh, I actually can't get over this. It's so weird.
it is. And I think it's really common in a lot of unionized positions,
Right.
actually. So thankfully, we had just newly created a new clinic called a community pain management program. I didn't know what that was, but it was in my old office, the one that I had first ever been displaced from, which was walking distance with my kids' daycare in that building and the hours that I wanted. And it's just something in me, like my intuition just said, go for it. I had no idea like what pain management clinic was all about. In home health, I was working with geriatrics, older
Yeah.
folks. And I thought like that was my absolute passion. This was going to be a little bit of a different scope and type of people to work with. I didn't know anything about it, but I thought it will work for me and my work-life balance at least.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
risk.
So you took it. I have to tell you that I don't know if I told you this when we had our intro chat, but I had one experience with my husband's health journey that I think I was telling you about. He has a big, really long cardiac history. And most recently, I guess now 5 years ago, he went through a lot of surgeries and there was some really complex pain that he was experiencing as a result of the surgeries. Like really out of control, actually quite scary pain. Like at one point he was like, I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack because I'm in so much pain. Like he was like, is that a thing? And we had this unbelievable doctor come in who, unbeknownst to us, there's this whole world called complex pain.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in and there was something about his energy. There was just something about him. And I was like, wow, what an incredible line of work to be in. And he was followed by the complex pain team for a while, even post discharge, because he was on heavy narcotics, of which he's like, I want to get off of this as quickly as possible. And just the research and the studies they've been doing and just talking and the way that they talked about pain, there was no judgment. It wasn't like he kind of experienced a bit of that at some point where it was like, oh, you shouldn't be having this much pain. And he's like, well, I don't want to be having this much pain. But then these people came in. And so anyways, when I heard you tell me that the first time, I was like, wow, I just have such a respect for this line of work, not knowing anything about it, but having that one touchstone of like these angels that come in who are really there to help you manage your pain. And then in this case, it was also help you get off of the pain meds in a really safe way so that we don't have this fueling of the opioid crisis. Like it's a whole thing, I know. But anyways, thank you for the work that you do. Not even really knowing what your day to day involves, but it's really beautiful work because there are so many people who suffer, and that I'm sure you've now been aware of. So tell me about this world. Like, what was it like to step into something totally different from how you started your career?
Right. And I think you nailed it in terms of, we always say in the industry, the best people work in pain, which is
Aww.
kind of crazy, but it is true. I think it just attracts a certain type of practitioner to be able to really sit with the discomfort and like bear witness to the difficulty, and hold hope and compassion through those journeys with our patients. So it wound up being an incredible experience joining the Fraser Health Pain Program. And I just absolutely fell in love with it. It was really neat as well that it was brand new. And so I got to really help build up the program, look at, what are the evidence-informed things that we want to teach our patients about. And I was able to pull in some of the things that I had learned from home health and being an educator in home health, linking some of those concepts and applying it to a new patient population, basically. Yeah, and I absolutely loved working kind of one-to-one with patients. I was the registered nurse. We were on a team, interdisciplinary team with an occupational therapist, physical therapist, and we do like an 8 weeks program teaching people about this idea of bio-psychosocial model of pain. So what are all of the things that start to go awry in our life when we have a lot of pain, and that when those areas of our life are not doing well, they make the pain worse.
What are some of those areas? I'm so curious as like, especially this population who might have had acute situations postpartum or even years after postpartum and there's stuff that people really can deal with for a long time. What are some of those factors that really play into this maybe cyclone of pain, if you will?
Yeah, exactly. That complex pain, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, right? It will be a lot of stress and uncertainty, definitely trauma, even medical trauma or, previous experiences in our life that have put our nervous system just in a more hypervigilant state
Hmm.
and tension. There's changes in sleep and how we're able to communicate, how we're able to function, doing the things that are like really meaningful and uplifting are not as accessible when we're in pain. And then that also losing those things and coping with the unwanted loss and change is such an emotional process. So there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's an 8-week program. Um, and finally, well, interestingly enough, I actually grew up with chronic autoimmune conditions and chronic pain since childhood, migraines, since I was a younger child. And I remember doing my first intake as a nurse for the pain clinic and asking a patient, what was your pain like in childhood? And they were saying, oh, no, I never had pain until this accident. What? I always thought like we all have pain all the time. And so then I went on my own journey of like, what are some of these things I can apply to myself? I haven't had a migraine actually in years. uh,
Tell us, how did you work through? I mean, if you want to tell us the story of your autoimmunes, I think that's also really poignant for a lot of people who, you and I were saying before, like everyone's got their shit. Um, and it doesn't make, like, you probably work with people who are more complex than you or maybe less complex than you. And still, it's like, it's important to honor where you're at. So in your journey, what was that autoimmune experience like dealing with pain through since childhood? That's unbelievable. Like, how have you
mhm.
navigated this?
Yeah, it was a lot of factors and different conditions, and some that are quite rare. And you know, um, it took me, I think, like my third or fourth time being in hospital for autoimmune flare up before I really put two and two together in terms of stress being a cause of increased pain, increased autoimmune symptoms, um, because I didn't feel emotionally stressed.
Oh,
I was like, oh, like
interesting.
I'm doing all these things. I got a new job and now I'm a mom and now I'm moving or whatever it is. And it didn't emotionally feel stressful or overwhelming or upsetting. And it took me a while to learn, like, no, my body is talking to me and telling me, like, this is not gonna work. This is not sustainable. Um, I'm not taking care of myself. It's almost like, I think I was saying this to you earlier. It's like my passion was like getting carried away. It was like turning into Hulk and just like dragging me around. And my body had something to say about that.
That's so interesting you say that because I've definitely heard people talk about how your body doesn't, and you could speak more eloquently on this. I'd love your take. How the body doesn't necessarily differentiate between excitement and stress. And those are more the like psychological sides of it or the emotional sides of it. But then there's also your body in stress. So if there's something from an autoimmune perspective that your body's kind of fighting itself, it gives you little clues, but you're like, yeah, but like I'm not stressed. But maybe your body in in that phase was like, no, no, but I'm physically stressed. Like the body is in stress. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like you're not eating enough, you're not sleeping enough,
Mm.
you're not, at a pace that's going to be sustainable. And the cascade of hormone changes, muscle tension that happens, like you said, whether it's good stress or not. And for a lot of folks too, you know, there's a certain pace that we might get used to. Um, Especially in kind of some difficult society norms where, hustle culture or whatever is seen as good, that doesn't actually land well for our bodies and our physical needs. And I think that was kind of one of the contributing factors. Is like that just felt normal for me to
Yeah.
be, self-sacrificing, being perfectionistic, putting a lot of pressure on myself for achievement and doing everything for everybody and putting myself last and all of that, it would catch up with me. Yeah.
And it would land you in the hospital. So what was happening in your body that was kind of causing it to be like, oh, I'm in trouble here, and would cause you to go to the hospital?
Yeah, I would need like IV medication. So just the normal medications wouldn't be working, over the counter stuff. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And this
Uh,
was for migraine specifically?
for autoimmune.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I mean, same with headaches. Absolutely. Same with migraines. And I have like some joint pain and that kind of thing. And it took
Yeah.
a while for me to accept that, I can't run at that pace all the time.
How do you accept that? How, and with those you work with or those who are listening who have something that they're dealing with, IBS, stomach, gut, headaches, migraines, hormone craziness, how does one reconcile that this is just maybe this is my natural disposition and learn to work with it versus getting angry? Like I resonate with this topic a lot because there's stuff that I deal with. Like I deal with really bad migraines once or twice a month, and it kind of takes me out. And maybe that's why we had to reschedule. Like I can't even keep track because I'm having to reschedule things all the time, and it really pisses me off. I'm going to be honest. It pisses me off. It
Yeah.
makes me annoyed. I look at Susie across the street. I'm like, she doesn't get this.
Mm.
How, and in my small self, sometimes I'll be like, how unfair. And I know Susie's got her own shit going on, but I find it hard to be forced to slow down. So how for you did you learn? It sounds like you've really like found this marriage, and I know you use the word self-management. Like how on earth have you reconciled just what is for you?
Yeah. Such a powerful question. And it's a work in progress. It's not a destination.
Mm.
Yeah, I sometimes call it going to couples therapy with your body. And it's like, ugh, like your body wants to talk to you in a certain way. You have your own agenda.
Such a bitch sometimes.
Yeah, like, but I can't divorce my body. Like, what the heck do I do? Right. So learning how to like listen, and find a compromise. Really that reaction to the sensations was a key for me. I didn't even realize the things that I was saying in terms of like, I can't handle this. This is overwhelming. This is unfair. This is killing me. Like some of that self-talk was just amping up my nervous system. That was just the self-talk was adding fuel to the fire in a way, and making the nervous system and the muscle tension and all of those things generate more intensity in that experience.
How much do you think having the right people around you, like care team, how much do you think that plays into it? And I say that because oh my gosh, this is so poignant. I'm coming off of having this peritonsillar, I'm such an open book. I have this abscess that sometimes grows in my throat. I don't have tonsils. It's called a peritonsillar abscess. However, there are no tonsils. It is the weirdest thing. This has happened the first time at one of my best friend's weddings, and my throat started to like seize and swell. And this is like the 6th time it's happened in the past 10 years. Anyways, I'm on antibiotics right now. And I was just talking to my naturopath about it, who I consider as part of my care team. I love my family doctor. I was unable to see her, so I'm going to other providers, had to go into the ER one night because my throat was like swelling, blah, blah, blah. I shouldn't say blah, blah, blah. It's my story. However, I say this because when I was talking to my naturopath today, I said it was such a breath of fresh air because she really listened, and she said that I'm sorry you went through that. That is so frustrating. It's frustrating that you knew exactly what you needed. I know I need to go on a couple days of steroids. Yuck. Have to go on a couple days, like, a week or 10 days of amoxicillin. Not something I want to do every day. However, I know that's what gets it out. Like, just, I know the course of action. And I found it so frustrating to be going to all these practitioners who was like, it's viral. You just have a sore throat. And I'm like, this is the 6th time this has happened and my throat is swelling. Like, I know. So all that to say, I'm like feeling fired up because of the fact that I felt like I didn't have the right people. I don't quite yet have like the right course of action when this happens. So when you see people in chronic pain, or even for your own situation, like how much do you think, even just by virtue of having someone that is really truly listening to you, how much do you think that plays into that, like quieting that self-talk and like really being able to thrive?
Absolutely. So, so massive. In fact, we even talk about it in our week 1, like on pain science. Just like you're saying, there are things that I can do for myself to respond to my sensations or changing physical symptoms. But I'm in a system, I'm in a culture, I'm in a community, right? And so I'm impacted by all of that as well. And like you said, the ability to access care will have a huge impact on how safe our body feels. And the ability to have a provider that we trust, that they can take care of us when we need, that they validate what we're explaining and our experience, and that they're able to trust us too. A lot of
Yes.
folks with chronic conditions don't feel like trusted by the healthcare system.
Because they might be like, I'm not a pill pusher.
Yeah.
That's what I was actually saying to one of the
Yeah.
5 people I spoke to this couple days ago. I was like, I don't want to go on the steroid. I don't want to go on the amoxicillin. Like, it's not my, but I'm going to. This stuff, like, without these medications, people die.
Yeah.
For different reasons, right? Like, that's like so dramatic. But I was like, this isn't me asking for something because I'm like addicted to pills or like, this is a very, I don't know. It's so I totally hear that, where like, especially people in pain, that's got to be kind of a weird slippery slope where these people are like, I don't want to be reliant on these medications, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yet here I am asking for more or something different because like it's just not cutting it. Like, oh my God, how do you all navigate that and really supporting those people in finding that balance?
Right. And because it becomes a double-edged sword where sometimes people are also not taking any medication when they should. Like, they need medication, but they're worried that if they take medication, maybe some people might think that they're just exaggerating to get the prescription.
Oh.
And so, yeah, there's kind of a lot of learning still to do in our care for a lot of these conditions where there's no biological marker. I cannot put them through a test and say, oh, you know what? We found that you have 7 out of 10 back pain. We just have to rely on what folks are describing.
Yeah.
And finding the different elements that help. So medication is one part of it. And another part would be, like physical therapy or, different care providers who can do things to us.
Yes.
Massage, acupuncture. But there's still that piece that I love to spread awareness to, just because of how much it impacted me, of what can we do for our own self as well. Because that feels so much more empowering to know that we're not just at the mercy of the healthcare system. We are. And we also have things within our circle of control as the person with lived experience that we can do to respond to our bodies with more support or practices that are going to really help tone down that stress and anxiety and emotional overwhelm.
Yeah. What are some of those small self-management pieces that somebody could take on or try on when they're, I don't know why I keep thinking like a pain vortex, but it does feel like sometimes if anyone's in pain, you're trying to catch your tail is what I'm picturing. Like when I'm on have a migraine, I just feel like I'm trying to catch the pain. if I didn't take my meds, Tylenol, Advil, whatever, early enough. So, and sometimes what I found is like relating this, I feel like I'm like getting my own coaching session here, but it's so relatable. I feel like everything, like you said earlier, goes out the window. Like I really can't eat. Like I feel zero hunger. I don't really want to go out and go for a workout. Like what are like those, some ideas around like those small steps so that like you're not continuing to say if nothing changes, nothing changes, and you're just in this spiral of doom.
Absolutely. So I think of it in terms of like preventative and then flare up management.
Mm.
So preventative practices that I found helpful and that the people that I've worked with have found helpful is having that relationship with your body, but being able to listen to sensations and experiences early on, right? Before I would just like not eat for a long time. And now I can tune into the hunger cues earlier on. So the body will start to scream at you if you don't listen to it when it's just talking to you at a normal pace. It's just going to turn up the volume. And so getting reconnected to noticing my needs. I was really good at noticing everyone else's needs. And for me, I've done that through, and we do teach in the program, mindfulness. And so just also what we call relaxation training. So doing deep breathing, journaling, and maybe some gentle movement activity like yoga or Pilates or running, anything that it's like I'm noticing my body.
Cool. So those are the prevention pieces, because sometimes those are not as accessible when you're in the flare up. I love that. Yeah, the word flare up is really, that's a good word. That's a good word.
Yeah. Yes. And so there's things that I can do to just keep my body kind of in a good state. And then the strategies that we can, even writing down, we recommend that in our program, a flare up plan in terms of what are some early indications I might be getting a flare up. For me, I would feel more achy at night and I would need extra pillows, or I just couldn't get comfortable. It was like an early sign that a flare up might be coming. So what are your early signs a flare up might be coming on? And what are some potential triggers for your flare ups? I know I may get a flare up when I'm stressed, or when I not slept well because my baby's been up all night, or whatever.
Yeah.
Knowing your personal triggers so that you can kind of make a mitigation plan and say, I'm at a risk for a flare up, so I'm going to really slow down today, or I'm going to do more calming activities. And then a lot of practice in self-compassion is also really helpful, because just like you said, a huge component of these experiences is our emotional reaction to them. And we're human. We're going to have all the emotional reactions available to humans. So that's like being pissed off or upset, or, the unfairness might land heavy. So being able to process those emotions, not just process the physical stuff, but also the emotions that are happening during the flare up.
So you're not just raging at everyone around you.
Exactly. Poor husband.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like every expert that I have on this show, without saying the exact words, it always seems to come back to like you need to have a menu for yourself. Like I've had people come on to talk about all sorts of things, like, what are your interests, what are your passions, talking about food prep for parents, like everything. And it really does come back to like, as a busy parent who knows that this might happen. Hopefully you can be like you and not have a migraine for a couple of years or flare-ups, but what do you know works? And sometimes when you're in the thick of it, oh my gosh, it's so hard to even know what's on your menu, to even just like have access, like, if like chicken soup could just be in the freezer, or like this could be a conversation with your partner to be like, hey, when this happens, let's just do DoorDash. Let's not add stresses to the evening, and just like, how can we keep everything as simple as possible? Or like, does getting a massage, like for me, actually going to get like a head and neck massage can really help. But I wait 3-4 days into a migraine to do it. And it's like, because I forget, or I just get wrapped up in it or whatever. So I think that's what I'm hearing is like just almost of remembering.
Yeah, and that's like 100% so common. That's why we um, purposefully make flare-up plans in our pain clinic with patients who are going through the program.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we're in pain or when we're, in a flare-up of some kind of condition, we'll tend to go to autopilot. Our body and our brain has said, you know what, when you did XYZ last time, you survived. It doesn't really care if you were comfortable, but you did live through it. And
Like
so,
childbirth.
yeah, exactly. It's like,
However,
it worked. So we'll just do it.
he'll do it again.
Yeah. Like, we'll just ignore it for 3 days and, be cranky or whatever. And that worked. And then we just kind of tend to do it again. And that's normal. That's just how our brain works. But when we have a plan written down that we can pull up and kind of override our autopilot, and then a really nice thing about a plan, I have a lot of patients even who put stuff in a box, like a flare-up box, where there's like a favorite treat, some pictures, some affirmation cards, some good massagers, playlists, whatever. And then you get some consistency. Okay, at least I know when I have a flare-up, I can go and get all my things I need in this box. And the more that we do it, our brains are predicting machines as well. And so they like, oh yeah, that worked last time. And it'll just kind of start to get onto a new autopilot path, I guess.
This is absolutely fascinating. I hope anybody listening who has someone in their life who is experiencing pain or anything in the chronic realm, like please send this episode to them. I'm so in awe of the work that you do and just these small, I don't know, these feel like really micro takeaways, but in a really big way, like real micro habits, things to think about. I also just feel like you're really normalizing that people have stuff that happens, like, and that's okay. Now, I would be remiss if we didn't pivot to talk about your parallel path journey as a mother, living on an acreage now and being a holistic nurse. Can you tell us that part of the story? Because how inspiring that you have this also alter ego.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I was loving it in the position as a nurse for the Fraser Health Pain Program, feeling pretty stable. Thought, you know what, I've been displaced twice in the last few years. Like, I'm probably good now, right? And so had an opportunity to kind of build a dream home and move into this 5 acres property in Pitt Meadows. We took that, and that was a whole journey. We lived in a trailer through the winter.
And if anyone's watching, if you can see Julia, she doesn't quite look like a trailer gal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a whole look, and lots of animals and a lot of pivoting and unexpected things. Building a house is pretty crazy as it is, but then it happened to be COVID hit. Right.
Oh, of course it did.
Yeah. So that
Talk
was
about flare-ups, flare-up triggers.
Exactly. This is where it was like all of those strategies that I had been learning and starting to practice in Fraser Health. I swear that is what saved me through those couple of years journey. And then we kind of moved into our house. We were feeling settled. Lost my job again.
Like, so nuts. I thought we were, to be honest, I actually thought we were already at 3. We hadn't even gotten to this.
That's it, like 3 or 4, like it feels
6. Never. I started off by saying 6.
Yeah.
As
so
if.
That happened again. Yes. And that just shook me again. Absolutely. And the kind of journey again that I took was to take an opportunity. I chose again not to displace back. And I wound up with 3 casual jobs. at the same time. So I went from working part-time to full-time, 3 jobs at 3 different pain clinics. So I helped roll out the program that we were doing at Fraser Health at 2 other clinics, including a St. Paul's hospital, which is a
Whoa.
far drive from Pitt Meadows.
Yeah. And a big hospital. Like that would have been a big program.
Yeah, I actually created a program for them at St. Paul's that was nurse-led, and I led it, and I did that for a year, but it was a lot. I felt a lot of mom guilt to go from part-time to full-time, and with my kids kind of in early elementary school at that point. It was really unbelievable timing that my mom decided to move, and she moved in with me temporarily. So for that time, I had a lot of support with her for like meals and kids pick up and drop off. Okay, I really leaned on a lot of people, and I hadn't been one to necessarily want a lot of help before, very like independent, only child. But I learned from all of the things in the pain clinic and realized I cannot overdo it. I don't want to get a flare up from this third displacement. And I was able to really lean on the supports of my family and friends at that time, and doing, yeah, three jobs. I was just trying to remember, what clinic am I at? What am I doing each day?
On top of kids' schedules too.
Yeah,
That's
on top
no.
of kids and shoveling horse poop and
Tell,
gardening.
tell us about this farm. What are you doing on this farm? This is crazy. So cool.
So yeah, we have, like, right now we've got a few horses, a very stubborn pony who I love dearly, a puppy, cat, fish. So really the neat thing about the horses is I've been working with a trainer on it's called natural horsemanship. What it is kind of interacting and training with the horses through body posture, body position, breathing, tension. And horses are almost like a little biofeedback tool where they can tell us how stressed or how tense we are. Because they're a herd animal, they and that they're a prey, they can't be loud in their communication with each other, right? Or they're going to attract their predators. And so they have developed like an incredible way of sensing each other's energy, and knowing like, okay, you're safe, we all feel safe. All right, we can graze. Oh, the leader of our herd is feeling tense. Oh, we're all going to be tense and on alert. And this is something where we, as people working with horses, can start to use that to build that body awareness. And okay, if I'm going and trying to work with my horse and I'm tense and I'm stressed from what's happening in my life, my horse picks up on that. And he's kind of like, I don't trust you. You're kind of amped up. And he's tense. And so this natural horsemanship work has just been another extension of what we've been talking about in terms of noticing your body and how your nervous system is regulated or not.
Yeah. And is this something that you hope to bring into practice with clients eventually? Because I know that equine therapy, or there's different things, different ways of calling it. Is that something, has this just been training for you to learn about this? Or is this something that you're learning to practice with others?
Yeah, it's like all these little skipping stones that have happened to me along the way. And at first I got this pony as a pet for my kids. We lost our dog. Then he was a little wild. And so I thought, oh, I got to bring a trainer in. She came in with this knowledge, and she had been, working with like trauma survivors and doing horse therapy. And so she brought that style of training when she introduced it to me. Then I started learning about it from her and applying it to the work at the pain clinic, and then applying it for myself, and now seeing that benefit for others. And so when I lost my job and I was doing those 3 casual positions, I also decided to go back and to school to do this year-long program through the Kind Institute for a holistic nurse coach and consultant. So that I just finished in October of 2025.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. And so I'm starting to look at private practice, as you're saying, and like what are some of the things that we can do to help our bodies on this journey, because we're putting a lot of demand on our bodies in today's society.
We are.
Yeah.
Holistic nurse. To me, that's an oxymoron. Tell me what that means.
Yeah. So it really means, we're not going to just look at a quick fix, oh, a migraine, take this prescription.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to look at the whole context. What is happening physically in your body, but also socially, emotionally, in your environment, in your beliefs, even spiritually, in terms of, how alive is that spark within you? And are you living out the things that bring joy and meaning to your life? So that's what we call the bio-psychosocial spiritual model.
Yes.
Yeah.
And who might access you or get to, really benefit? I know that it's always great to have somebody before shit hits the fan, but say there is somebody who's like really looking for someone to help with pain, chronic illness, whatever it is who are you? Who could come work with you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, anybody. We had to do many pro bono clients. And so a lot of people come for things like, feeling really stressed or overwhelmed at work, potentially starting to go towards feeling burned out. A lot of people with chronic pain, chronic conditions, autoimmune, people who are having difficulty with sleep and insomnia, people who are wanting some help in terms of setting new goals or kind of making a new trajectory in their life. I did also some training in something called pain reprocessing therapy, which is incredible, like very well evidenced in the research and so impactful on the people that I've worked with, that they tell me they have no pain anymore.
No. What is it?
4 years. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about this. Pain reprocessing. What is it?
Therapy.
Therapy. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. It's incredible in terms of looking at this model holistically, the whole picture, zoom out and look at the big picture of what's happening. What is your body trying to tell you? And decreasing our fear of the pain, increasing our sense of being able to handle it, or that we are knowing the tools to overcome that experience. It's a training. It's really rewiring our brain to respond differently to what's happening in the body.
Why do you think it's so hard for us to buy into it? And I say that lovingly because I do buy into it, but there's so many who maybe don't yet. They've never had an experience. I did EMDR, tapping. No, I did some sort of reprocessing around trauma.
Yep, EFT.
EFT, thank you. Yeah, EFT. And it was a certain situation that happened when my husband was in the hospital, where I saw him there was a code that was called on him and I was right there. And I couldn't get it out. It was like a PTSD situation, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And I did that. And so I know that these weird magical things that we hear, pain reprocess, like it sounds crazy. But unless you experience something that is kind of otherworldly and then you see the outcome, like I don't think about it anymore. I know it happened and I know it's there. I can see it, but it doesn't sit with me anymore. Unbelievable. I wonder if that's kind of similar for maybe the pain reprocessing, where you're like tapping into this like very deeper level of your brain that perhaps is not unlocked. Is that kind of how it goes?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the hard part is some of these practices have been around since ancient times. Like, it's not new. We put a new name on it, you know?
Sciencey name.
Yeah. And great that there's research. That's as a nurse, that's what brought me to the practice, was seeing the evidence on it. But then also experiencing it for myself and seeing it work for so many people. But it is practices that have been around for, a very long time in a lot of like ancient, more culturally traditional care practices, right? And unfortunately, we've been in a medical system where they've really divided the body and the mind, and the spirit. You talk, and this is where holistic nurse, I think, is so unique, because people don't want to talk to a therapist about their body or their pain or their chronic disease. But when they go to talk to the doctor's just going to be really pinpointing on the body. And so I'm trying to help bridge that. We can work on all those levels at the same time.
Yes. It is so unfortunate that this has happened. And I'm so thankful for people like you who have recognized the need to bridge the gap, or just bridge the people. Like, I can imagine you would be somebody who, coming from a clinical background, can say, yes, we need to abide by what your doctors, let's work with your doctor and your medical plan. Let's work. You have a naturopath who can like help you with supplementation or like lifestyle things. Well, great. Bring them in. Like, let's all have open lines of communication. My GP is actually amazing. She's like, I don't mind if you work with a naturopath. She's like, yeah, is it my first choice? No, but don't hide anything from me, is what she said. And she said it in a very loving way. And I really appreciated that, because it's true. In the past, I had this doctor who hated the fact that I had a naturopath and that I took fish oil. Like, we're not talking about anything crazy. It wasn't anything crazy. And he was just he was kind of a jerk. And my doctor now, she's like, just tell me like what you've got going on. I'm not really like, she's like, yes, I agree with the vitamin D. Fish oil is great, blah, blah, blah. She's like, some of these other, supplements I don't know about. It's kind of out of my realm, but I need to know about it.
Yes.
And that was nice to finally hear somebody say, like, I'm willing to like have the connection be made, and we're not all fighting against each other. So is that kind of in your work? I imagine that's how you're working as well.
Exactly. And it's, there's going to be people with ego, whatever their job is. We're going to find them. And sometimes they don't understand something. So that may trigger them to kind of get a little bit defensive or kind of that unhelpful bedside manner. But I think there's a lot of awareness growing in the fact that the healthcare system needs help. And it's not perfect. So obviously, the more informed, supportive care providers that can be there for our community, the better. Also, the pain reprocessing therapy training that I went to is mostly it's taught by doctors, and it's mostly doctors that are training in it.
Cool.
Yeah, and I've been actually presenting this information at doctor medical conferences, and just trying to spread the word, because it's nothing, it's really a form of mindfulness meditation. And my practice is coaching. It's like a health and wellness coach. So it is all based on what is your intuition and what are your strengths and your priorities, and then working together to find, based on the research, based on you as an individual, what we can do to kind of support lasting change.
It is so unbelievable. Your story is so cool. And when we were chatting before, again, I know I'll ask everybody, what is your thesis? Like, what would you want to shout from the rooftops? And you had the most interesting one that I've ever received, which was, all you wrote was, what can I learn from this? And I thought that was so beautiful. Can you tell us why you wrote that?
Sure. So my job now, I wound up, after that year of the 3 jobs, I a vacancy came, I applied for it and was the successful applicant to be the regional clinical coordinator for the pain program that I had been the nurse of. And so now I'm the supervisor of that.
Crazy.
And
Congrats.
it was an absolute shocking journey to get to. And, each job I had, I thought, this is it. This is the best job ever. And now where I am, it just is such a blend of all of my passions and all of my skill sets and experiences that I get to now create and give out on a bigger scale, instead of just being one nurse to one patient, kind of on that wider level where I'm sitting on different advisory committees and all of these things. And I really looked at what you were saying on the thesis. There's this thing called Pronoia. Have you heard of that?
No.
Okay. So it's the opposite of paranoia. So paranoia is like, thinking like everything's out to get you. And pronoia is thinking like there's something in any situation that I can learn from or I can leverage. And
the world is conspiring in my favor.
Yes, even if it sucks, like even if I cry myself to sleep for like a week because of it, what is there something that I can learn? Or is there some tool or new skill that I can get out of these experiences? And I think of this analogy of like a spring. And, it's like a spring, it can get depressed, pushed down on, and you think like, oh, it's shrinking. But when there's that right angle and the pressure releases, the spring can spring back up or spring higher than it ever went, without that force being put down on it. And so I kind of like to keep that in mind whenever I'm going through these difficult things in terms of how can I find the silver lining or get some learning out of these difficult experiences.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And what a great metaphor for everything we've talked about today as well, in the whole, what is my body whispering at me? And how can I create that learning so that I can actually be a better version of myself? I feel like we get really stuck, especially when you have a chronic situation. You get really stuck and just like, I just want this thing to go away. You never can imagine that, like, oh my goodness, maybe I could actually feel better than I ever have. We don't even like look when you're in pain, have a migraine. You're like, I would give anything. I'll never take always, you have like a cold or a flu or migraine. You're like, I'll never take my health for granted again. And we just want to get back to baseline. But what I'm kind of hearing from what you're saying is that spring, it's like, how can we actually like bounce into like even greater abundance in life or whatever that looks like, which is such a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah, exactly.
Julia, where can everybody find you? Before we do that, very quickly, we're way over time, I know. Thank you for thanks for sticking with me.
I could talk all day about this.
I could talk. This is so fascinating. So we have listeners, United States, United Kingdom, Canada, all over. If somebody is like, I feel like me or my mom or somebody I know could really use like specific pain support, how might they go about advocating for themselves to find, say, like a pain clinic?
So in Canada, we have Pain Canada, which is an incredible organization. Their website is like quite comprehensive. In BC specifically, we have Pain BC, and they're one of the biggest nonprofits for pain internationally even. So we're really lucky to have them in BC. They have incredible supports and resources, and internationally, again, the UK and Australia both have incredible programs, and we'll probably be even like checking in with a family doctor and seeing what they recommend, because there are so many pain clinics and programs that are popping up. Finally, I think it is getting the recognition.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people might be struggling with something that's chronic, but they're followed by the person they're followed maybe by the specialist that could be causing the pain versus
Mm,
working with somebody who is specialized in just pain in general, which I think is a huge difference and something I'm really taking away from this. Like, you might be still followed by somebody in like the prenatal, postnatal world. However, you don't have, they might be talking about like hormones or like, okay, the anatomy of like your vagina, if whatever happened in birth, etc. However, you might have like a long lasting pain
yeah,
and they're doing the best they can. They're like, yeah, everything looks fine, but you're like, but I'm still in pain. So this is like actually very eye opening for me. And
yeah.
I think listeners too, that like this is a separate body.
It's
And
a specialty. It's
yeah,
the pain system is like another, um, you know, you almost have like the different specialists for different
yes,
organs, body systems.
yes,
Pain is its own system, and it really is so helpful to have providers that are knowledgeable. I mean, we talked about it on a kind of a broader scale,
yeah,
but we know all the way down to like what's happening in the glial cells at the action potential of the synaptic cliff that changes. Like it's real physiological, chemical changes that happen. And
yeah.
to be connected with a person who specializes specifically in pain, like you're saying, or in chronic diseases, um, I think it makes a world of a difference.
And we haven't barely didn't even talk about, motherhood. We kind of it's implied, but like
Yeah.
this is like, when you're really talking about that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you're in pain or you're dealing with something chronic, like that's foundational. That's like to even survive, to get out of that vortex loop. You can't even talk about adding in creatine or weightlifting if you can't even like hardly get out of bed and parent your children and
Yes.
just do day-to-day, daily active living things. So
Mhm.
that is like I just feel like every parent listening would be like, "Oh, crap. Yeah, this is real. We should really take accountability for this." Where can everybody find you, learn more about the work you're doing, work with you as a holistic coach, nurse
Yeah.
coach? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I have a new website. It's safespacehealing.ca. And you can email me at julia@safespacehealing.ca. Um, I have not been on social media since like 2019, so I'm
Good for
getting
you.
on there.
Go
I know
girl.
that's
You
what everyone
go
tells me.
girl.
I'm gonna get on there as well. But for now, I think yeah, the website and email. I'm checking that email like constantly.
Yay. Congratulations. Thank you so much for sharing this story. I feel so inspired and I just feel so happy that this information is getting put out there. Like I just love learning about new modalities and these angels that are people like you who are doing this type of work. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on.